Nari stanabharanabhidesham.
Nari stanabharanabhidesham. Nari stanabharanabhidesham.
Drishtva maga mohavesham.
Drishtva maga mohavesham. Drishtva maga mohavesham.
Etanmam savasadi vikaram.
Etanmam savasadi vikaram. Etanmam savasadi vikaram.
Manasi vichintya varam varam.
Manasi vichintya varam varam. Manasi vichintya varam varam.
Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamate. So, in this verse, the previous verse, Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya was talking about the limitations of artha. So, we know now what artha is, security. So, what does he do in this verse? In this verse, he is talking about the limitations of karma. So, this one, and I will also include another one, I'll tell you. Somebody's notes are in here, so I don't think this is my copy.
I'll give you blank copy.
Yeah. I don't know who's this. Because some scribbles are there. So he's talking now with reference to karma. And what does he talk about in this verse? So it is, some acharyas skim over this verse, but it is important that we understand what it means. He is talking about sexual pleasure. He's talking about attraction amongst the opposites. So he's saying here that seeing the form of a woman, seeing her voluptuous form, seeing that, again, addressed to men, but for women also, it is, women also have same issues. So it's not just for males. Seeing that, don't get into that feeling of lust, don't get into that feeling of pleasure, wanting that type of pleasure. Because he says, what is this body that you're attracted to? It is just a modification of flesh and fat. So he's made it very clear in those days as well. So he says, and it is important because this is something even we see in our Puranas, this drive, this urge, it's also an urge, a human inbuilt urge. This has brought down even rishis. People who have done thousands of years of tapas. What do we read? Suddenly Menaka comes, Vishwamitra is in the seat of tapas. He's doing so much. He's focusing on Bhagavan. He sees this beautiful woman. And what happens? Tapas goes for a toss. So he's there. He is out of his tapas. But the greatness of the rishi is what? He recognizes. He recognizes that he slipped. And it is very easy to slip out of one's spiritual pursuit with this. So we should not, what he's advising is that don't get infatuated with the opposite sex. These days, opposite or same, we don't know, but don't get infatuated with anyone. It will drag you down in your life. So this karma here has been taken to another level. First, karma is talked about as desire, but here he is talking about sensual pleasures, any kind of carnal pleasures. So he says, ma ga, don't get into it because it is a trap. It will take your thinking away. Moha avesham, it is a kind of infatuation, an attraction, a fascination, and it is not going to last again. If you see, we want that quick sukha. So people go after this immediate pleasure seeking all over. It is not just, in one limited, again, all of this is universal. It's not limited to one place or one culture. It is a human problem as well. And it is a problem because it takes you off the spiritual path. It takes you away from seeing what is real. So, in fact, he gives very explicit advice. Drishtva, he says here, seeing what? Seeing this voluptuous form of a woman or this form of a man, manasi vichintya, you keep thinking about it. When you feel this attraction, you take time out, you question, what is this? It drags your mind away. Your mind is any, we can actually take anything. People may have had experience of it. There's nothing wrong because it is a human experience as well. Something you may have felt highly attracted to, drawn to in your life. You just look back in your life and see how much time that object has occupied your mind, how much that object or that person has taken away from your lifespan, actually. We get dragged into thoughts of that object, and then we get dragged into many projections. All of this happens. So Adi Shankaracharya says, please take time to analyze in your mind, what is this body I'm attracted to? What is this I'm attracted to? And he says here very clearly, Etat mamsa vasadi vikaram. This body that we are so attracted to is just a modification of flesh and fat. In fact, in Ayurveda, there is something called Sapta Dhatus. I don't know who has, if you've studied Ayurveda. So it talks about the 7 things this physical body is made from. So have a look at these 7 things. I mean, of course, we know many other things: rakta, blood; rasa, plasma or tissue fluids; mamsa, flesh; medha, fatty tissue; shukra, reproductive tissue, semen, etc. All of this; majja, bone marrow; and asti, bones. Every single body is composed of this alone. And we make up this body. So we find, we attract other people because we want to attract. We also feel good. Okay, people make up, they use makeup and this foundation and that mascara and this. And it's interesting also in the human race, it is the woman that dresses up more, right? We find the women wearing more jewelry, makeup, and everything. But in nature, it's the males that try and attract the females. If you look at all the male, like peacock, male peacock, beautiful. You see, have a look at this. In all these species in nature, it is the male that is more beautiful than the female to attract. But in human species, it is mainly the female that dresses up. That is why female is used here, because he's saying it can distract from the spiritual pursuit. So Adi Shankaracharya very explicitly is saying, Drishtva, see what it is. Makeup can't hide. You take off the skin. What is there underneath this? It's yucky, actually. If you see what the body is, it is not very nice. It's not very pleasant what is inside. And you are drawn to this. This is what you want to spend your thoughts on, your mind on. So he's, also in Tattva Bodha, there is a explanation for the Stula Shariram. Stula Shariram Kim. What is this physical body? There, in the Tattva Bodha text, we have seen that he says there are 6-fold changes also to the Stula Shariram. Asti, it is. Jayate, it is born. Vardate, it grows. Viparinamate, it changes, it transforms over time. For a while, you're in youthhood, you never think you're going to get old. I don't know whether you all remembered your 20s or even the teens. And the body is very flexible, fit, you're running around. Everything looks, the skin is all, nice, soft, got full of energy, you can do so many things. And we never think that time is going to come to an end. Slowly you enter 30s, then things start, drooping more, everything. Then 40s, after 40, what happens? More and more changes. You see, suddenly gray hairs start appearing, some tooth problem, gaps, root canal, this work, that work. So before you are having, nice jewelry as accessories, now you have other types of accessories, walking stick, hearing aid, slowly different types of accessories start coming, as we progress, 50, 60, slowly we see what? After viparinamate, it says apakshiyate, body starts declining. Every body starts declining, even though people want to maintain youth. You find, in the West, I don't know in India whether it started, but there's a whole culture of trying to look young. They will have facelift, plastic surgery, and people you see with these, facelifts look worse than they had before. Very, 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 very frightening to see what people undergo to keep the body looking young. So much pain with plastic surgery, so much pain to keep this body young. But the question is, can we keep the body youthful forever? By doing all, is it possible? So far, we have not discovered any potion, any cream, anything that will stop death from happening. At least one wrinkle will come, when you reach old age, and you can't hide that wrinkle. You may think your makeup hides it, but it is there. You know it is there. So what's the point? So this is what he says. Apakshiyate. Look at all these sixfold changes for this body. What is there to be attracted to? What is there that is drawing you? And he says here, not just today, not just in Bhaja Govindam class. He says, Varam, Varam, again and again, please think about this limitation of this physical body. In fact, in Krishna in Bhagavad Gita brings up a value which includes also the similar thing, to look at the limitations of this physical body. So if we had X-ray vision, we could see right through everybody's body, the skeleton. But Bhagwan has provided some costume in front, some skin, some nice looks, because otherwise the population will not grow. So some attraction has to happen. So here he says, Ma ga moha moha vesham. Don't get into this moha, don't get deluded by this, and don't give extra value again to something that doesn't deserve it. Practice what we call, and this is we have borrowed from Patanjali Yoga Sutras, what is called a technique in modern psychology. It's called CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. But we had it, the rishis had it in those days, thousands of years ago, Pratipaksha Bhavana. Pratipaksha Bhavana, whenever you feel drawn towards doing something or your mind is going in one direction, Pratipaksha means you take it in a different direction. You take it in another direction. So this is a very important thing also, verse to understand. And I've taken verse 28 because 29 and 28 match with these. Here he says, Sukatah क्रियते रामा भोगः सुखतः क्रियते रामा भोगः पश्चाद् शरीरे रोगः यद्यपि लोके मरणं शरणं तदपि न मुञ्चति पापाचरणम् Together, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamate. So very similar verse. Here he's saying, Sukatah kriyate Rama bhogaha. When you want to experience pleasure of sexual union with the woman, you do it for the, for sukha. Some sukha you experience through that. So everybody, whole Jagat knows about that sukha, and many people are after that sukha. But he says, what does it lead to? If you get trapped in that, he says, the consequence will be roga, it will be disease, because on the subtle level, when we are involved in too much pleasureful activities, when some activities give too much pleasure, it is said that the sense powers get weakened actually. So the more one, this is not just in this case, it is in every sense pleasure. If suppose I indulge too much, indulgence in food, indulgence in any kind of sense pleasure, subtly your sense powers get weaker and weaker and weaker. And when your sense powers get weaker, what happens? Roga is a consequence. So diseases, illnesses, and all this can be consequence of too much indulgence in anything. So he says, Rama Bhogaha, which is pleasure of carnal pleasure, sensory pleasures. Sukhatah kriyate. It is a fact. We cannot deny. It does give some joy because people go after it all the time. But he's warning it can bring you down in so many other ways. You are not aware it can bring you down. First of all, it can become addiction. Any kind of intense pleasure can become addictive, and then dragging your mind. Any addiction means what? Means that your mind is not with you anymore. You become a slave of the addiction. So you don't control the thing that you're addicted to controls you. Like alcoholics, you will hear them say, no, no, I can take it. I only one more glass, only one more glass. I've seen people who have, who are alcoholics do that. Just one more beer, it's okay. One more. And finally you find they've had six, saying one more, one more, one more, and it's still going on. So that one more, that beer, who is in control here? Is the beer in control or are you in control? So I asked that question. Are you in control or is the alcohol in control of you? No, no, I can control. I said, if you can control, you can say stop. But you're not able to say stop. So this is the issue here in life also. To get into situations where I'm not able to say stop is actually very dangerous. So here he says, for a sake of sukhataha kriyate, for a slight joy, for a sake of temporary pleasure, you want to spend your whole life weakening your inner strength, weakening your willpower. Willpower also goes down, right? Every time I keep enjoying, willpower also goes down. And as I said, you are no longer in charge of your life. Your thought comes, we'll see the mind in shastra, how the mind works, because it's interesting to know what thoughts actually we need to manage in our mind. So the shastra has been very, very clear about what kind of thought forms arise in our minds and what really needs the management, what really needs the my power over it. So here, these infatuation, base pleasures, Adi Shankaracharya brings into Bhaja Govindam because it is a part of life. That's why I love this text. When was it written? 500 AD or something. 1200 years ago, this text still applicable for this day and age. Amazing. So human condition has not changed. Maybe technology has changed, world has changed, but human mind has not shifted at all. And in those days, they have analyzed all of these things. And it is important that we also see, however, people accept, but it is what is being said is very true as well. So he says, Paschat, later. Paschat means later. Hanta rogaha. Hanta means, oh, alas. Oh dear, what has happened after enjoying a pleasure, pleasure, pleasure after life, pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. Then what happens? Rogaha, some disease comes. So we can see that, I love sugar. I love sugar. So eat sugary things, laddu, this one, that one. And India is the place, unfortunately, sugar place is India. You can really make effort to avoid when you're abroad. And there are, places you can afford. Here, anything. Today, somebody gave me some bundi raita. I was so excited. Oh, some extra dish, from Rishikesh ashram. So the sadhus were given. I tasted with full of sugar because the person who made it was Gujarati. So Gujaratis will always put some sugar in, even in savory. I was thinking, oh, so excited, with rice, I'll have bundi raita. And I just became, oh, Hanta, alas. Because I know, if we have all carbohydrates constantly, then it is going to be difficult to, manage the health as well. So this constant rogaha, we have to see that one thing or after another, if we indulge, it is definitely going to come. See, this is also intelligent design. Have we ever thought what intelligence is there? Why Bhagwan has made all tasty, nice things not very good for us? Because, Ishan, if it was good for us, then we'd all enjoy, right? But things that are very good in life, which we feel a lot of pleasure out of, if we do too much of that, what happens? Something definitely goes out of place, and in the body, it's not harmonious with the body. So Bhagavan has built this body like that, built the world like that. Why? Because we're destined not to find total pleasure in the world. We're destined not to rely on the world for our happiness. It is designed like that. So you will look in a different way, look in a different direction. So bhoga is enjoyment, roga is disease. So we have, three types, bogi. I don't know whether you've heard that. Bogi, rogi, and yogi. So a bogi is somebody who eats 3 times a day, somebody who enjoys 3 meals. A rogi is who eats maybe 2 times a day. And a yogi eats only 1 meal a day. So bogi, rogi, yogi. We can choose. In fact, the stomach is, I heard, I'm not a medical professional, but I heard the stomach is only this size, right? But do we put this size food in it? I think we put this and everybody's fist together will come in one stomach. So quite a bit of unnecessary consumption happens during the day. So that's why there is a Sanskrit verse saying, you should have a quarter in the stomach filled for liquids. A quarter should be solid food. A quarter should be liquids. No, a quarter liquids, 2 quarters solid, and 1 quarter should be left for air to circulate. But half the time there's no air circulation happening. So in fact, when you have, eat according to this, what is being said in this verse, you leave a little hunger there still when you have the meal. That's what people usually do. But anyway, we have to see this regulation. We're talking about food for ourselves, for our own health. And after a certain age, unfortunately, we're forced to regulate our diet, right? We're forced to regulate many things in our life. So here he says, Yadyapi loke maranam sharanam, even when Lord Yama is having the last laugh, even when, he's there, right there, laughing at you in this world, he's having the last laugh. Still, na munchati, you don't give up. What don't you give up? Papa charanam. So he's talking about different thing here. Papa means doing it's wrong. So we'll see some verses in Bhagavad Gita where Arjuna discusses this well. Very interesting. It is wrong. It is not going to be healthy for you. It is not going to be helpful for you. But what do you do it? You do it anyway. That is called Papa Acharanam. You take to this adharmic route, or you take to this Papa, you don't give up the lifestyle, even though it is not good for you, not conducive for your life. And why can't you give it up? Why can't you change your lifestyle? Because there is, again, very heavy attachment to it. There is a binding like to having things the way you want, the binding like to certain pleasures. And when the binding nature comes, what does it mean? Without that object, without that thing, you cannot be free. So this is what Yadyapi Loke Sharanam, Maranam Sharanam. He doesn't give up this Papa, this lifestyle, which is very, given to wrong action, wrong activities. he cannot follow dharma. So here in these verses, what is Adi Shankaracharya doing? You can also see for yourselves. He is not discouraging enjoyment. Let's be very clear. Enjoyment, we are given, we're blessed with the senses. Did I choose to have the senses? I have eyes, I have ears, I have nose, I have tongue, I have touch, I have the senses. But Bhagavan is not going to say, I bless you with these sense powers, but don't use them. Then it's not worth it. Why will he do it? He's not saying that with this. What Adi Shankara is saying is that use your senses, but the word is what? Moderation. Everything in moderation. You enjoy things while they are there. Don't get attached to things again and again. Enjoy it and move on. Enjoy it, move on. That's a wise person. So there's no repeated experience that you want to gain, that repeated experience. And for this lifestyle, a life of discipline is very necessary. So in the Gita, you see many verses in Bhagavad Gita talking about reigning in the senses, indriyartheshu vairagyam. We have seen all of this, whoever study Gita, but it's very good to understand why the life of discipline is important. For spiritual aspirant, it is very conducive for your spiritual life. Otherwise, we will be all over the place. So with these two verses of Bhaja Govindam, I wanted to come to Bhagavad Gita because Bhagavad Gita actually helps you to practice what is being said here in your life. So what are the verses that help you practice? I've picked two, 3 verses which actually link to this topic we have seen. And these verses are in the 2nd chapter of Gita, verse 62 and verse 63. So I'm not sure about what the translation is here, 62 and 63.
Page number 44.
Page number 44, correct. Dhyayato. So you can chant this. These are very good. These 2 verses talk of the eightfold fall of the human mind. How, when one goes after desire, the fall happens. So when you see this fall, you will definitely get more dispassion towards objects of the senses. That's why Krishna is introducing. He says, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsaha.
ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसः ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसः
Sangasteshupajayate.
सङ्गस्तेषु प्रजायते सङ्गस्तेषु प्रजायते
Sangat sanjayate kamaha.
सङ्गात् सञ्जायते कामः सङ्गात् सञ्जायते कामः
Kamat krodho
कामात् क्रोधो विजायते कामात् क्रोधो विजायते
Krodhat bhavati sammohaha.
क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः
Sammohat smriti vibramaha.
सम्मोहात् स्मृतिविभ्रमः सम्मोहात् स्मृतिविभ्रमः
Smriti bramshat buddhinashaha.
स्मृतिभ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशः स्मृतिभ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशः
Buddhinashat pranashyati.
बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति
So you can read the translation. Gita Press has given very nice book because it splits the sandhis as well. So what does Krishna talk about? So he says, dhyayato vishayan pumsaha. How do we rein in the mind? So we link it to Bhaja Govindam. Now Adi Shankaracharya said this is an obstacle in the pursuit if we get involved too much in sense pleasures. Then what do we do to rein in our mind? What practices can we do? So first practice has to depend on knowledge. If it's simply rules that are laid down, it never works. All these commandments. That's why some places you find don't have desires, don't do this, don't do that. People start developing more and more complexes in spiritual life. So we go to places like ashrams and gurukulas to remove complexes. But when you have all these do's and don'ts and all of that, what happens? You develop more complexes. No, I shouldn't. No, now after that verse, some people, no, I shouldn't look at women. I shouldn't look at men. Then you don't look anywhere because everybody's male or female. So you end up, there are some ashrams like Swami and people don't look at women. They're not meant to even look. There are some places where you can't look at opposite sex, things like that. So we have to understand spiritual life does not involve extremes. Nothing extreme is conducive to spiritual living. Spiritual life is understanding why you're doing what you're doing. When you understand the why behind what you're doing, then it really works. So that is where knowledge comes into the picture. Renunciation, vairagya, dispassion for this objects of the world, for things of the world. If it is through knowledge, it works, which means you don't crave. It's like a 3-year-old. As a 3-year-old, I'll enjoy playing with a balloon. But when I'm 50, if somebody gives me a balloon, maybe you like it. But generally, 50-year-olds don't play around with, don't play around with balloons so much. They're not so drawn to it. Why? Because you have grown out of that. You know that balloon, you have balloon knowledge. What balloon can give you? At 50, you've grown out of that desire. So it is not rejecting desire, not getting rid of desire. What the Shastra wants to do is for you to grow out of desire through knowledge. So this is what Bhagavan is doing. Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsaha means the one who dwells on sense objects. The Dhyanam Dhyayato means any kind of dwelling. Vishayaha, Vishayaha is objects. It's a very interesting word in Sanskrit. Visinoti Bhadnati iti Vishayaha, the derivation of the word. Because everything in Sanskrit has meaning. That's the beauty of the language. That which binds is called Vishaya. The actual meaning for object means that which binds you. Visinoti Badnati iti Vishayaha. So it can bind you if you allow it to. It can enslave you. We know, again, so many objects that do that. But when I start dwelling on the object, what happens? So suppose I'm going to a shopping mall and I'm walking past some window and I see, I really uh, I have to use, I'm sorry, ladies, but I have to use saris. Okay, sari is the example. So I walk past this nice sari shop and I see this wonderful model in the plastic model dressed in this beautiful new silk sari. What happens? I walk past, I see it, and then I go back, I look at it again. The eye is already locked. So eyes are the main culprits of senses. Eyes immediately they will lock onto something. Then what happens? Then is dhayato. You repeatedly you look at it, you wait there 5 minutes. Oh, look at the price. Look at the price is 20,000 rupees. One sari, 20,000 rupees. I can't. Husband is near you. And you're looking at him very lovingly, asking him for the sari. What does he? He doesn't look at you lovingly back. No, we are not spending 20,000 rupees on that sari. And you walk on. But what happens when you get home? Mind starts going back to the shop, starts dwelling on the sari. It keeps coming back to your mind. That's called dhyanam. That object keeps coming back constantly and you keep entertaining it. Let's add that. If you don't entertain the thought, it will vanish by itself. It is like a fancy. But what do? We give power to that desire, we give power to that thought. And then the next step, what happens? Teshu sangaha jayate. You develop a fascination for it. You start developing some kind of attachment towards this object. Even when you're cooking, you're thinking, oh, that sari, beautiful, what colors, amazing. You may even chop your finger because you're contemplating, because you're not focused, you're thinking of that sari. Then sangat sanjayate kamaha. Sangat, from that attachment. From that fascination for the object, kamaha, intense binding desire is born for it. Binding desire means I have to get it. Somehow I have to get it because I need that to make me feel happy. So that mind tricks us into thinking I need that to make me feel happy. So sangat sanjayate kamaha. But it is not binding at first. So this kamaha, when it comes and it's not fulfilled, sometimes it gets fulfilled. When it gets fulfilled, then everything is okay. Then you go back to the stuff. We go back to the start. Dhyayato vishayan pumsa, another object comes after a while. But suppose the desire does not get fulfilled. Suppose you have a very resistant husband who says, no way. Even though you throw all the tantrums, he's saying, no way, you're not getting this sari. That's it. What happens? What happens to anyone who obstructs your desire fulfillment? What will be your reaction to the person who obstructs your desire from being fulfilled? Bhagwan says, Kamat krodho bijayate. Immediately the reaction will be anger. Anger. So from binding desire is born anger. Now you're already going, your mind is going now. When anger comes into the picture, your free will is going. So this is the point where you start losing your free will. Your ability to use your free will starts going here. So kamat krodho bijayate. In fact, the Shastra says anger is nothing but a symptom of suppressed desire in everybody. It manifests. We think other people make us angry. We think, the environment makes us angry. We think some situation makes us angry. But in fact, if you did not have anger inside, can anger come out? If you don't have anger inside, it cannot come out. But we do have anger inside, and anger is actually suppressed desires. So desires that have not been fulfilled manifest as anger. And when you cannot make somebody a victim of your anger, you keep it there, and that becomes, so very angry people have a lot of desires which are unfulfilled. So obstructed desire leads to anger. Then what happens? So unneutralized anger, krodat bhavati sammohaha. When it is unneutralized, it is not addressed, then sammohaha is the next fall in the fall of the human mind, which means your mind gets deluded. In anger, can you think of anything? In anger, are you conscious of yourself? You are not, you lose yourself in anger. All the wisdom you have gained, what happens with the wisdom? All the values classes you've attended, the Bhaja Govindam retreat, what's happened to it? All the eightfold fall, and understanding this, you know, anger, it goes. So sammohat smriti vibramaha, Bhagavan says, you forget. Smriti vibramaha means all your memory is gone. All that you have studied, all that you have learned is suddenly disappeared. You can't recall anything. This happened for Karna. I don't know. I mean, Karna lost, he was cursed, poor thing. Poor Karna, he was cursed so many times. No, he was such a nice person. He's worth studying in the Mahabharata as a character, very great giver. He did a lot of dhanam, but he cursed here. First, he was put into the water by his mother. He never felt he belonged in the family he was adopted into. So many so much psychology we can understand from Bhagavad Gita. But he was cursed also. The moment where he needs that missile, that divine astra, he will forget the mantra to chant it, to invoke it. So poor thing, he was not able. So anyway, that's a different thing. That's a different type of thing. Here, your own actions have led to your discriminative faculty going. Your smriti, your memory power, it goes. And everything you've remembered, everything you've heard about the dangers of binding desire, the dangers of getting into this eightfold prong, this fall of the mind, everything you've heard, you forget in that moment of anger. And buddhi nashat pranashyati. Sammohat smriti vibramaha. the last thing is that buddhi nashat, which means when your discriminative faculty, your intellect is no longer functioning, then you are gone as a human being. What are you now? You're gone. We don't know what you are. You're a different species. So you're totally gone. So you're no more a Purushaha. You are living life just like this. So this is what Bhagavan wants us to understand. And why is it important? Why is this all important? Because when you understand what happens, and you can't deny this is what happens. This is so brilliant, the way Krishna has unfolded it. This is exactly what happens in modern day as well. When you understand what happens, you can manage before it gets to that stage, right? Which stage should we cut it off at? Soon as if the what stages are manageable in our lives. So dhyanam, dhyato vishayan pumsaha, first stage as well. Am I able to not dwell on the object? That is where mindfulness practices come in. I have to keep diverting the mind away from that object. If it keeps going back, keep diverting, keep diverting. One day or other, that object will go out of the mind. In fact, Krishna talks more about different types of desires in the third chapter, which are also interesting as well. And the next step is that sangaha. Sangaha means an attachment is born. I'm still able to manage, right, at that stage. So I'm not able to stop dwelling on it, but an attachment starts forming to the object. But through some little vichara, through a little inquiry, what can I do? I can dismiss the attachment by seeing the limitations of the object. What can it give me? Okay, I buy the sari. I have already got 500 saris in my wardrobe. We saw yesterday we're using the 500 wardrobe sari, and we have 500. I buy that extra sari. How long am I going to do it? I'll wear it for one dinner party. I'll wear it for maybe another function. Then what? Then people have already seen me twice in the sari. I can't wear it that time. No, I have to get something new. There are some people I hear who don't wear the same saris. You know, they wear different saris on a different day. So this is what I mean. That object that you are so after, you wear it once, twice, and what happens then? So this is the way you analyze. You have to include your intellect in your life more. What will happen to me if I get the object? How will I feel? So here, this before it gets to sammohaha, Bhagavan says, stop it, nip it in the bud. Sangas teshu pajayate, sangat sanjayate kamaha. Before it becomes kamaha, intense binding desire. Okay, kamaha here means if I don't have it, I'm not going to be happy. That's when you know it's binding. Until it's, oh, if I have it, I'll be happy, it's okay. But if I don't have it, I'm going to be unhappy in my life. Is called binding. So we differentiate between desire and binding desire. We don't allow desires to become binding. When you have desires which are non binding, you can enjoy life, right? If it happens, okay. If it doesn't happen, I like this. I like this thing. If I would like to have this. If I have it, fine. If I don't have it, fine. So I'm not bothered either way. But when I intensely want it and it doesn't happen, that is when it's dangerous. So this is the first two verses of Bhagavad Gita. He discusses this management. I call it the management of senses, management of mind. There is another verse in chapter 13. You can have a look here. You can mark these verses because they're all linked. These are all to help you. So in chapter 13, in I think verse, one of the values verses, yeah, 8th verse on page 183, he says, Indriyartheshu vairagyam.
Indriyartheshu vairagyam.
Yeah.
Indriyartheshu vairagyam.
Anahankara eva cha. Janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha doshanudarshanam.
Janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha doshanudarshanam. Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Doshanam.
This last line, it is a single compound, so it has to be chanted without breaking it. So it is one. There are three places in Bhagavad Gita where you don't break the chanting. So this is one of them. Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam.
Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Darshanam.
Yeah. So we're not going to look at that anyway. That was applicable, this value, for the verses that we have seen before. See the limitations of the physical body, janma, birth, death, disease, all of this. But here Bhagavan says, indriyartheshu vairagyam. So indriyartheshu, again, very similar. Indriyartheshu is with reference to the senses, with reference to the senses. So we have, these organs of knowledge at our disposal. Sense organs are called organs of knowledge in Sanskrit. Jnanendriyani. They are data input. They bring in knowledge of the external world. And how do I act on the knowledge, the data that is brought in from the external world? I have another set of organs, five, which are called karmendriyani, the organs of action. So my output is organs of action, input is sense organs. Beautifully, this body is built. Look at the intelligence, in this. There has to be an intelligent giver of this intelligence to make, all these parts fit together. So he says here that indriyarteshu vairagyam, that vairagyam means a certain dispassion, developing a certain dispassion for objects of the senses. So we have seen with the verses that we just saw, I developed this dispassion by constantly bringing in my intellect and inquiring into what the object can really provide me. What can it give me? So, this is a practice in spiritual life. Many of the qualifications you see for spiritual aspirants bring in this reining in of the senses. We have also seen in Tattva Bodha where they bring in the Shama and Dhamma. Dhamma is reining in the organs of action, Shama is resolution of the thoughts. So, all of the resolution of the thoughts, the desires, all of these are things to be practiced. So, why are they important for us? Why is this important? Because if I'm constantly, involved with the external world, I can never discover the inner world, what is in the inner world. So these practices become important for spiritual life, because spiritual life, does it deal with external world? It does not. Its spiritual life examines the external world, but spiritual life predominantly deals with your mind and your inner world. External world for a while is kept at bay to help you. When once you understand your internal world, external world cannot bother you anymore. But while the external world troubles you, while it bothers you, while it gives you issues, then for a while Shastra also says withdraw or find some quiet space away from the external world. If you can't find a space in Delhi or Chennai somewhere, it's very difficult to find a space where you can withdraw, right? Everywhere you go, there's someone. So if you can't find the space to be with yourself in the day, for some time of the day, find a time. What is the time that you can be with yourself? Usually early morning. Are people awake at 3? Are people awake at 4? You have to make, that's why they say that Satvika Kala, which is Brahma Muhurtam, that time is given for spiritual sadhana. And this is a very good time to spend appointment with yourself. So, looking over what has gone in the day, examining yourself, alert living, all of this is part of Vedanta sadhana as well. So, here he says, this vairagya you develop by understanding all the limitations. We saw that in the Purushartha, limitations of these sense pursuits, not allowing your cravings and your hatreds to overcome you, overpower you. These days in societies, children are, I don't know, more and more. In the West, it's like that. Swamiji used to say he saw the difference between children in India and those days, I don't know now, but children in India and children in US, because he used to teach in the US. So when they used to meet him at the US, they will have very strong, like, I don't like peanut butter. I don't like this. I want this. I don't. So that kids will be like that. Whereas he found that in India, the children will sit quietly. They don't have these. If he gives prasadam, they will take the prasadam. He had this experience because there, in a modern society, actually works on developing the likes and dislikes more as from the child, in the child. And in fact, spiritual life is saying that is what creates the primary disturbance in your adult life. The strong likes and dislikes that children develop, the strong likes and dislikes will be detrimental in adult life because they disturb the mind. So life is all about being flexible with yourself, being flexible with the world, not being too, having too much longing, not having too much hatred. So here is what is being said here. Vairagya is a beautiful word in Sanskrit. It means dispassion. Develop a dispassion from emotional hooks, external. Develop a dispassion from anything, having attaching your happiness to anything external, people, objects, situation. And how do I do that? I do that again by developing a healthy relationship with the world. Healthy relationship means I don't add extra value to the world, as we talked about this morning. My adding extra value to the world is what is responsible for my disappointment. In fact, the world cannot disappoint. World has no capacity to disturb you. But I have expectations of the world to be a certain way. I want, objects also, people should give me a certain pleasure. Once they stop pleasing, what? Dumped. So I get disappointed. I had the expectation in the first place. Who had expectation? My projection. I projected the world like this. I project onto the objects and people. And when the objects and people are not conducive for my happiness, what happens? Disappointment. So this formula, expectation always ends up in disappointment. Objectivity means, vairagya means, I don't expect the world to give me anything. I'm very clear what things, I don't expect the world to give me more than it can. Let's not say anything because it's very difficult not to expect anything. I don't expect the world to give me more than it is capable of giving. And that requires, again, a clear mind to be able to see what every object can give you, what every relationship can give you. So I reduce my projection on the world, and what do I find inside? I find myself becoming more and more calm, more and more peaceful, less and less affected by what is happening externally. This again is a practice, and this is very good for spiritual life. That's why Bhagavan brings in this practice, Indriyarteshu Vairagyam. It's a very beautiful verse, actually, even in the Bhagavad Gita. Yada samharate chayam kurmongani va sarvashaha indriyan indriyartebhyaha tasya prajna pratishtita. The second chapter, when Bhagavan is talking about Stita Prajna, the one who is established in the knowledge, he talks about this verse. He said, such a person who is established in himself, established in this knowledge, will be like a tortoise, will be like a turtle. What does a turtle do? It withdraws its limbs at will. It goes under the shell. So, it's protected under the shell. So a wise person also, when when the senses want to go out and he knows it's not healthy, what is he able to do? Like a tortoise, he's withdrawing the senses at will. He can withdraw. Are we able to withdraw at will? With practice, we can withdraw at will. So that's why all of this requires certain practices. And how do you develop these practices? Only by practicing. So you develop the practices by actually practicing it. People always ask, how do I do it? I say, practice, start. You have to start somewhere. If your mind is going towards an object, rein in the senses, keep it there. See how it works. Rein in doesn't mean suppression. So we have to be very clear. Don't suppress the desire. You analyze the desire, and through understanding, you transmute the desire. So suppression, it should not lead to suppression. If the desire, sometimes Bhagavan also says there are certain desires you have to fulfill because it's so strong and it keeps coming back. Sometimes you may have to go through the experience to understand the limitation. So these things, Indriyarteshu Vairagyam, and all of these Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa, these verses of Bhagavad Gita are very beautiful verses to develop objectivity, to develop dispassion towards the world, and not allow the world in. Because the whole, issues in life begin when I allow the world to enter me. World is the world, it is external. That is why you have to, again, understand this idea. Our disturbances of our mind is when we allow the world to enter our mind. So Swami Chinmayananda used to say, you should have a board there: no entry without permission. No entry without permission. Nothing should enter you without your permission. You should be able to decide what you let in and what you keep out. So with that, I think we will finish for today. ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। असतो मा सद्गमय, तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय, मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते, पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ।